This programme is brought to you by UCKG.
Hello and welcome to another fabulous episode of A Different Kind of Woman. A different kind of woman is brave enough to face her fears.
Terrified of the creepy crawlies? Scared of slippery servants? Well, you're not alone. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, phobias affect approximately 10% of adults.
On today's show, From Fear to Freedom, we are going to be discussing how to overcome our fears.
Let's take a look at what's coming on the show. Next, we're going to find out what people on the streets of London think with Anna Maria.
I am most afraid of really deep water and, well, any water in particular really, swimming and things.
We'll find out how brave we are. Our team visits the Fearless Speaking Academy.
Your thoughts and your feelings about yourself increase your self-worth and your confidence.
We'll be welcoming Dr. Rita Santos, cognitive behavioural psychotherapist, to the studio.
One of our priorities is going to be to survive, basically. So we're going to have a bit of a reaction that sounds a bit irrational and all of that.
And getting style tips from Jessica Ann.
Style does not equal fashion. Style is being true to yourself and expressing your personality.
Joining the sociable Sandra and I is the joyous Gemma.
Hi, I'll try to bring some joy to the show, guys.
We believe you will.
Welcome, ladies. Today's topic is From Fear to Freedom. And I've got a question for you guys. What is the greatest fear that you overcome, ladies?
That I've overcome. I think I was afraid of heights for a very long time. I grew up with it, and I'd be at the top of stairs. I couldn't look down at buildings. And now it's actually the one thing that I absolutely love doing, like going out to really high-rise buildings. And I think I overcame that by jumping out of an airplane. Once I did that,
She really overcame. She proved.
That was a really overcome.
And after that, I was like, yeah, I'm all right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have anything in mind, Sandra?
What greatest? I still have a fear that I need to overcome.
Yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah. We won't mention that because we don't want people to know about it. But for me, the greatest fear I've overcome is the fear, and it's a bit different, but it's the fear of wearing skirts. I know it seems weird, innit? Because I didn't really like wearing skirts. It wasn't my thing. I wasn't like a tomboy or anything. No, but I just didn't like wearing skirts at all. And the first time that I actually did wear it, as an adult, I was sweating, petrified.
Wow.
But I overcame that.
Congratulations, very fast.
I know, you look beautiful today.
Yeah, I've got many things, as you said. Some of them I didn't overcome yet. But I could consider one, because I was shy, which was public speaking. And look where I am today.
I know.
Speaking even my language. And here I am. I think fear also comes from the insecurities you have inside, isn't it? Anyway, we're going to have a doctor here explaining more about it. But I believe that comes from the insecurities, isn't it? Like you said about skirts. As you said, it's not something like heights or maybe those creepy animals. However, sometimes it does come from insecurities we have.
Definitely. Yeah, I find that it's a lot of our fears are based on what other people think about us rather than what we think about ourselves. Like if you think about the whole skirt thing, I remember I had something similar with my arms, like I couldn't take off my jacket. And this lasted like a good 2 to 3 years, and it was a complex I had because I was thinking, people are going to think they're too big, or they're too, like when I wave, they're a bit too wobbly. And it's like all of these things wasn't actually about myself only, it was about other people. And sometimes it just dominates your mind and dominates your thoughts and brings you to a place that's not even reality anymore. And when you think about all the possibilities of what could happen, you think, I prefer not to do it.
Ladies, we've got so much to say. However, before we delve into the topic, further, let's take a look at what people on the streets thought with Anna Maria.
What are you most afraid of?
I am most afraid of really deep water and, well, any water in particular, really, swimming and things.
Spiders or like any insect that has like a lot of legs.
I would be afraid if maybe to lose my girlfriend, or if all the people would vote to get out the Europe or the UK, so everyone has to go home, back home. I hope it's not going to happen.
In this day and age, probably the future, no one knows what's going to happen for certain, and with university prices going up, you just don't know.
I would say about the future, what's going on with this referendum, and it's a bit sad to feel to be treated like this, you know. I'm a bit concerned because I don't know, I have my job, I've been living here for long, and nobody knows what's going to happen.
Have you ever overcome fear? And if so, how did you do it?
Yes, I overcame it I was in charge of lots of children in water, so I had to swim because their safety was up to me. So I had to, there was no choice. I had to get in the water and I had to swim.
I was on like a school trip and I'm scared of heights, so I went on a zip line, and then the only way I could do it is if they like pushed me off and I had my eyes shut. So that's how I overcame it, so now I'm okay with heights. Yeah.
Usually when I have a fear, I try to take a deep breath and I try to face it. And in the end, you can see it's always, you make it bigger than it is usually.
Quite honestly, I don't think so. I don't have any of those fears like spiders. That just doesn't really affect me. They're more like bigger, more abstract fears, which I don't really think you can overcome.
Do you have a question for our panel?
Does knowledge overcome fear? Can you learn to not be frightened by learning?
So, ladies, what were your thoughts on that?
I think something that's really current at the moment is the whole EU referendum, and as we know, we have decided to Brexit. And I find it interesting because, you know, I put my hand up. I was one of the people that did vote to leave the EU. And it was funny because in spite of all the fears, all the scaremongering that is out there, like, oh my goodness, what could happen to the pound? What could happen to us? Can we make it alone? I thought, you know what, actually, I'll just be true to myself and I'll vote like that, and I'm happy to share that. But it's funny because I'm surrounded by a lot of people, you know, at work and so on. You see it in the newspapers, you see it right out there. Can we survive? Can we do this? Will we lose jobs? Will people be sent away? You know, and will people withdraw investment out of the UK? And all of that does bring fear. People are thinking, wow, will I be made redundant? And a lot of that fear brings about anxiety. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. We actually don't know the future. And a lot of things people said was, we don't know the future, and I think that is the bane of every human being's life. And it could be the best thing that's ever happened to us, or if it's not the best thing that's ever happened to us, I think a lot of the time we have to think, you know what, how am I going to deal with it? But usually what happens is people are like, they're so busy and paranoid and worried that they make themselves sick, they get themselves into these down and out stages, and sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because, you know, you work with people and they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose our jobs, let's move out or let's do this, and they do things with a knee-jerk reaction, and then actually maybe they didn't have to do it, and you know.
So by what you were saying, well, one of the people asked about the question if we believe that knowledge helps us to overcome fear. So I believe by what you answered, you might agree that once you get the knowledge about something, this might help you to overcome the fear you have. For example, you're talking about this situation, you know, that is going on at the moment. Maybe many people, as they got the knowledge, the fear that they had inside went away, so they started believing in a more positive way. So what do you think, Sandra? Do you think knowledge helps?
Yeah, I do think in certain things, having a knowledge of something does help. I mean, when it comes to losing something, I don't see how it relates. Like, there's just no way how a knowledge of losing something can help, no matter what. But I think in certain things like the, you know, political things and, you know, different things in life, if we have knowledge of it, we could actually think, you know what, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. What was I afraid of? Like when you said you jumped out of the aeroplane, you know, before then you were really scared about it, but afterwards you thought, oh, actually, it's not as bad as it seems. So, I mean, I do agree, but then, I also have my doubts in certain areas. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think, I think human beings, a lot of us struggle with change just in general, and I think change is a scary prospect because it's easier to stick with the familiar. And I think sometimes it's about control, because if I look at myself, some of the fears I've had, like someone said losing someone, and I remember I've spoken about it very openly on the show. I spoke about when a close friend of my husband died and how it brought so much fear to my life about my own family members. And I speak about it constantly because that's kind of like a coping mechanism for me. But it was kind of like, wow, this is out of my control. And I think that's why the future is so scary, because all of us, we like to keep things in our control, and then that's what brings our security. And when it's out of your control, you think, oh my gosh, I can't cope with this.
Well, in a YouGov survey, respondents were asked to rate their fears out of 13 common phobias, ranging from not at all to very afraid. Let's see if we are braver than the average Briton.
So ladies here and our viewers, let's see at a few images and see if you can make it through the list without being afraid of anything. Bring up the first one, please.
Oh.
Afraid or not afraid? I know.
Definitely. Very afraid.
Yeah, I'm so afraid.
I don't think I am afraid.
Oh,
of them.
really?
Really?
We see them on the tube all the time. The thing is,
yeah, you see that again. It's from afar. Imagine you walk into your bedroom.
That happened to me though. One time I saw a mouse in my bedroom and it did a somersault.
Oh no!
Yeah, it did. I promise you, it backflipped when it saw me and went back into the hole. I was like, oh, thank God we moved out.
Okay, let's look at the next one.
Yeah.
Are you afraid or not?
What is that?
afraid?
The dark?
Yeah,
is that the dark? No.
No. When you're older.
Although saying that, when I walk on a dark street with no lamppost, which is rare in London, it does make me feel uneasy, definitely.
Oh, small spaces.
Yeah, I feel uncomfortable in small spaces.
That's what I was going to say, more uncomfortable.
More uncomfortable than afraid.
Yeah.
A crowd, big crowd, I think.
Well, we are in London, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
we live
you
in
just go
in
to
a land
Oxford
of
Street and you're gonna leave.
You got that.
Yeah. Not afraid. Oh yeah, this is one for you, isn't it?
my past, isn't it? I would be.
I think it's
afraid.
more like nervous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Insecure, but yeah.
Oh my.
But if it looks like that, then definitely. I don't think we've got those kind of spiders in London, but yeah.
Very afraid.
Very afraid.
It's disgusting. Oh no, I love stuff like that, blood and all that. Yeah, no, it's fine. No.
When you see it, you are, and then after
but
it's
it's
done,
easy to deal with it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
No, I'm not
I'm afraid.
Actually. Yeah. I actually get.
I enjoy it.
I get sick on the airplane.
I think we need a new way to travel to country. I absolutely hate flying. I absolutely hate it.
Oh, this is with Gemma.
Yeah, I love stuff like this.
Oh no, I'm so very afraid.
I wouldn't
like
be.
I know, right? I can't.
But I hate flying.
Yes, it's like more secure.
I'm afraid. I don't
understand.
Oh no, I'm not
some
afraid.
children are afraid of clouds.
Yeah, because they're just weird looking. Yeah, I can see why.
Oh yeah,
I am definitely
100%.
afraid.
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
Even on TV.
Oh God,
what is that?
Disgusting.
What is that?
I think it's
a
bat. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because they bite you, don't they? I think they make
Definitely.
you. Do they make you blind, or are they blind? I can't remember.
No, they're blind.
Well, you're just scared of these little creepy things. The survey found that heights are the biggest fear of all for British people, with a massive 58% of respondents saying they suffer from acrophobia or vertigo for some degree.
While that's not necessarily surprising, gravity can be a killer. After all, more than a quarter of the public said they were inexplicably afraid of mice. I'm one of them.
At the lower end of the scale, 12% of respondents suffer from fear of clowns, and 14% were at least a little afraid of the sight of blood.
With the exception of needles and getting shots and blood, of which British men and women are about equally afraid. More women than men are afraid of each thing.
This gender gap was widest when it came to spiders, which scared the majority of women, 52%, but only a third of men. Brave men.
The survey results were also broken down by age groups and found that fears varied enormously when comparing 18 to 24-year-olds with those 60 and above.
It found that young people were much more likely to be scared of spiders, needles, and public speaking, while older people tend to fear more snakes and heights. And the results also showed wide discrepancies between the regions of the UK, with the people in London and the people in the south consistently more afraid of just about everything when compared to the north and Scotland.
We're going to take a short break, but don't go away, as we'll be right back with more exciting discussion on From Fear to Freedom.
This programme is brought to you by UCKG. This programme is brought to you by UCKG.
On today's show, From Fear to Freedom, we've been discussing how brave we are compared to the UK population.
Fear is a vital response to physical and emotional danger. If we didn't feel it, we couldn't protect ourselves from legitimate threats.
But not all fears are rational. I've got a question for you, ladies, and for you who are watching us. Why do you think we fear situations that are not life or death?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
We all think of something.
You're the... I think whatever we feed grows, and I think sometimes, you know, you have fear because of, you know, your background. It could be from your family, or it could be from, the media, like I was saying earlier. And whatever you feed, whatever you think about constantly, it just grows and grows. And then it gets to a point where you don't even remember that actually this is not rational, because it just becomes so real, like, oh, this could happen, that it actually, in your mind, you just think, oh my gosh, I don't want to be part of that, or I don't want that to happen, and that just consumes you. So I think if you feed it, the more you feed it, the more rational it becomes.
That's true, I do agree with you. And it's just, it's also like fear of not knowing what could happen. Yeah. So because we don't know what's going to happen if we face the fear or whatever it is, we get scared, but it's not life-threatening. It's you know, and sometimes it's smaller than we think it is.
Yeah, I think many times comes from inside out, isn't it? It's the way, as you said, it's the way you see yourself. It's the way, you know, you believe things will be. So that's when, and as you said as well, Gemma, when you start feeding that fear, it becomes so real in your mind that, you know, from people outside, they can't understand sometimes why you fear so much certain things, but it's because inside of you is so real.
I was thinking that though, fear is an emotion, and if you think about it, any single emotion that you have, like sometimes you can act in a way or react in a certain way, and you afterwards, you know, when you come back to your senses, you're kind of like, gosh, why did I do that? Because that is the rationale. And when you're acting out in emotion, a lot of the time there is no logic, there is no rationale there. You do it, you feed the emotion, and then it's kind of like, oh yeah. And that's what happened, like when I was saying that I overcame my fear of heights. I was kind of like, oh yeah, what am I afraid of? And hopefully that will happen with the whole flying thing. But you kind of think, oh yeah, actually, no, it wasn't that bad. But that's when you come back to your senses. When you act out in the emotion, you're not rational.
Yeah, I think I could use that for the fear that I have.
The fear of cats that you've got,
Everyone knows.
Okay, so a statistic estimates that 75% of the population has a fear of public speaking and experience physical discomfort at the thought, with some people going to great lengths to avoid it. We're going to take a short break now.
Yeah, but before we go for this break, our team went to see people overcome their fears at the Fearless Speaking Academy. Let's see how they got on.
Hello! We're here at the Fearless Speaking Academy to find out how we can free ourselves from our fears and live our lives on our own terms. Come on, let's find out what it's all about.
Academy is about is that what's the most feared thing to do in the world? I can't hear you. Public speaking. Is public speaking dangerous? No. Pardon? No. So why do we fear it? Confidence. Judgment. Fear of judgment.
What are the aims of the Fearless Speaking Academy?
So the aims that we're trying to get at the Fearless Speaking Academy is to bring the authentic self to the stage. And it's not just for public speakers, it's to allow people to feel comfortable in their own skin and to be that person who they are behind closed doors.
What living on my own terms mean to me is just having that sense of freedom and being able to wake up each and every single day doing something that I really love, and also just following my purpose in life. I don't really want to be here doing something unless I want to do it for myself.
When you look good, you feel good. Your thoughts and your feelings about yourself increase your self-worth and your confidence, okay? It creates a positive self-image of yourself.
What do you hope to achieve today at the Fearless Academy?
What do I hope to achieve? I hope to be able to inspire people and share my story on how I turned my passion into a business. And I also want to educate people on what it takes to create a brand through image and style.
Douglas, what do you hope to achieve today at the Fearless Academy?
Excellent. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I guess the thing that I really recognize when we're talking about people who are speaking and have a message is that, quite frankly, everyone has a story and a message within them. And I believe that we as human beings, as we grow from each other and we connect to each other and really tap into each other's brilliance, we can become better. For example, no one's ever climbed Mount Everest by themselves. It's always been a team. So if we can help each other to become more by being that team, then we're successful. So today, my role is to be here as a servant, to serve, to help other people ignite their brilliance and share their messages.
And I come up to this guy, I'm like, wow, this is an incredible building. What's this? And the guy looks at me, he's like, you're serious, mate. Yeah, what building is this? And he's like, you're serious? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, Buckingham Palace. So I didn't know which building was Buckingham Palace on my first visit here. So I'm really sorry. I apologize. I know where it is now.
How does our mindset affect our lives?
Well, mindset is really everything. We can never rise higher than we believe or that we imagine and what we're inspired to do. So mindset is the foundation of everything. And one of the things that I think is quite important to remember about mindset is that you probably heard the saying that says actions speak louder than words, but I believe that being speaks even louder than actions. And so it's not a matter of doing the right things, it's a matter of first being the right thing. And if we'll be that right thing and have that right mindset, we can do anything.
Before coming to the Fearless Speaking Academy, I was skeptical. It's all been said before. But after listening to Jessica, Douglas, and Warren, I feel inspired and ready to face life on my own terms. Are you?
This program is brought to you by UCKG. This program is brought to you by UCKG.
Welcome back. On today's show, From Fear to Freedom, we've been discussing rational and irrational fears.
Joining us in the studio is Dr. Rita Santos, cognitive behavioral psychotherapist. Welcome, Rita.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to have you with us.
I'm okay. How are you?
So, you specialise in anxiety. So, for you, what do you think is the difference between rational and irrational fears?
It's a very good question. I think you pretty much nailed the answer already with the conversation you had between the three of you. I would say that irrational fear is a fear that is not, we tend to call it irrational, we don't understand it, but it's actually quite helpful in a way. Let's say if you have a spider that you find that can be very dangerous for yourself and you see it in the corner, your brain is going to take all the necessary steps for you to defend yourself and survive, basically. So you find it irrational because you don't understand it, because it's just a small little spider.
Right.
okay? But in terms of our evolutionary history and all of that, somehow our brain has recorded that those things can be quite dangerous to us. Okay, so the only thing our brain is pretty much kind of lighting for, waking up for, is danger. Okay, so as a human being, one of our priorities is going to be to survive, basically. So we're going to have a bit of a reaction that sounds a bit irrational and all of that. Now, that sounds all very good if we're talking about a tarantula, or if we understand if it's a tiny little spider in the corner, we're going to say it's very irrational. As you were saying, it comes from, or you were saying, it comes from inside, so it feels really real. So if you top that up with some experiences that you have had with spiders that haven't been very good, or I think you were mentioning if you have witnessed someone actually being quite scared of spiders themselves, like mommy screaming around when she saw a spider in the ceiling, and all of that's going to be reinforced in terms of how your brain remembers things. Seems quite irrational, right?
Talking about social anxiety, in your experience, how do you believe people can overcome social anxiety?
How can people overcome social anxiety? It's not easy. And actually, it's an important thing. So that takes me to just a little bit on the previous question about what is normal anxiety or anxiety in a way. So you tend to anticipate things as well. So it's not just about having something in front of you, but it's about thinking of what could happen. And that happens a lot with social anxiety. So people that do what you are doing, what I'm doing here today, if they're speaking to an audience and all of that, they most of the time anticipating what could happen. Are they going to be judged? Are they going to perform well? What's going to happen? And that is terrifying. Now, the anxiety is actually really good because it helps you perform better, so you are more alert. So it is okay to be a bit anxious, and it's good that people understand that anxiety is just a bit of a problem when it starts really impacting with your life, so you're not able to do things. Okay, so when you really avoid things to a great extent. How you overcome it? Pretty much by start doing it, by start facing your fears, get some knowledge about it. But as you were saying, all of this about knowledge, very good, but yes, in my opinion and from what we know, not entirely sufficient. You need to experience things differently. So you can know about it, but you also need to feel differently about something. So if we're talking about the rat, that all of you kind of reacted a bit, I could convince you here and I could be very persuasive that they are really nice little things, and I do it with a face obviously, you know, and I could be very, very persuasive as I was saying, and you would get out of here saying, oh, let's get one as a pet, and you know, it's going to be very nice. But if one got in the door, we would all of us jump, because our experience with the rat didn't really change. So basically what I'm trying to say is about the knowledge, but it's also about going out there and learn about your anxiety. So what your anxiety is tell you, what it is all about, what actually can happen, what are actually people thinking about you rather than your perception of what can happen and is happening. So it's actually a possibility. People do it. They're very successful at it. But it's hard work.
You know, very interesting what she was mentioning, because I could relate to what you were saying previously. You were saying that in order for someone to overcome social anxiety, a good way to start is going out there, started something, pushing yourself a little bit forward. And I can remember that because I used to be very shy, this was something every time, oh, is there anyone who would like to say anything? I would already, you know, put myself back, like not me. Even if I had, even if I had, I would keep to myself. And when I start thinking, you know, but I can't do that. Why? I think getting the knowledge, where it's coming from, is not rational. And this was one thing that I would start doing. I would, you know, who has something to say? Me, you know.
It is very true. It becomes complicated when it's actually a disorder, when a problem, someone develops a serious problem with anxiety, and it starts really taking over your life. So, you know, I could give you endless examples, but some people are scared of speaking in public or giving a presentation because at some point, potentially, they were going through some stressful things in their lives. They were sweating, they were doing the presentation, got this idea that sweating comes across in a very bad way, and now they really believe they sweat a lot, and they cannot face any kind of audience whatsoever. And why I can give you an example is a lot of people start using several layers of clothes so people cannot see their sweat. Now that we're sitting here, we don't have an anxiety problem, we can see that that is just going to make people sweat even more. And you get into the self-fulfilling prophecies that you were talking about before. But you cannot see that. What you can see is that you're doing everything you can to control how you come across. And that's the only way you have of actually going out there and having the courage to stand up in front of people. It's actually really debilitating when anxiety takes over your life. It's a fascinating emotion because you need it to survive, as you were talking about, but it can debilitate you to a great extent. But yes, it's possible to overcome it.
That's great news.
I wanted to take a deeper dive into people's cognitive behaviour. You know, because sometimes we talk about these fears, like, a spider or a mouse. You know, I actually work with somebody who has a real fear of people, and it's gotten to the point where sometimes you just can't get him out of his house over the weekend just because I can't face people. And, you know, when does it get to that point where you think, you know what, this has gone a little bit too far? And how do these patterns that we have, because we all suffer from a little bit of fear, how do you know when it's gone too far, and how does it affect people day to day? And you think, you know, like maybe it's a friend or family member and you think, I need to maybe step in and help, and how can we help?
It's difficult to help family and friends.
Right.
But you know, just being there, listen, and actually being supportive, try to challenge it a bit. It's probably not a bad idea. I mean. But how do you get there? It's a bit of $1 million question. We don't always have an answer for all of this, but repetition tends to be one of the things. So people go through several experiences. They are associated with stress, with some physical things that you feel that are very unpleasant. You link the two together. But it's a lot related on how you think about it. And what do you make out of it? So the anticipation, the worrying about the outcome, the future I was talking about, you guys were talking about before. So what's going to happen next? What are the consequences? And people get really involved in all of that. So if this person you're talking about starts being scared of people because of what they can do to them or how they come across, I don't know the case. Now they start avoiding seeing people, so they really never get any evidence that maybe people think differently of them or that they can cope differently, or actually they can get satisfactory experiences out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
So you get again in a bit of a cycle of withdrawing, and as you were saying as well, getting to the familiar, staying in the familiar is very easy in a familiar place. So by withdrawing, you engage in being in your safe place. And even if it feels quite bad, it's quite familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
And anxiety again takes over. So suddenly, even if you didn't control the problem itself, you controlled what you feel inside and that turmoil you have in terms of your physiological sensations, basically. It's quite debilitating. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
No, it does. You know, you're talking and I'm thinking, a question I get asked a lot is, are you able to do it alone? Because this advice is great and people are watching at home, and I know some people are probably looking at you and thinking, okay, that sounds great and I'd love to do it, and then it's like tomorrow you face that fear and it's like, oh my goodness, because you've learned that behaviour, you've lived with it for so long. Is it really possible for someone to sort of pull themselves out of a rut, if you like, by themselves, by just training themselves to think differently, or do they need help from someone professional or maybe a family member or a friend? You know, because I'm just listening to you, I'm thinking, people are probably thinking, how can I change something that I've done, which is familiar to me for so many years? How can I then start to train myself to be different?
Well, I would dare saying that if the anxiety you experience is quite mild and you haven't had it for too long, it's been a recent kind of problem, you can potentially help yourself by being quite clear about it, try to be quite reflective about it, what is happening, what changed, what can I do differently, all of that. If your anxiety is quite moderate to severe, the anxiety is not going to allow you to have that clarity. Okay, because as I was saying before, your brain is going to be pretty much on that place of danger and you need to survive and protect yourself and do everything you can to cope the best you can, basically. So it's going to be a bit difficult to be able to do that on your own. So there's nothing wrong about seeking some help either. Anxiety is a normal emotion, so what is done in therapy is, is helping people to manage it better. It's not to get rid of it. Without it, we actually can die. If you have a car running towards you in the street and you don't have that helpful fear we were talking about to actually run away, you can actually die. So having anxiety to an extent is very helpful.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah, and I was going to ask because before, let's say many years ago, we were not born, but we wouldn't hear so much about that anxiety, depression, and so many things. But do you think this is more to do with today's life or lifestyle? It brings more anxiety, more kind of pressure on people's life, or you believe that people used to suffer from that even decades before?
I think it's always been there. There's more awareness of it. There's more research. We have words for it. We have names for it. We have models. We have treatments. We have research. Because, I would say, before 50s, there was not a lot there for anyone in terms of mental health. And you had a big boom with medication. So instead of lobotomies, like things being drilled in your brain and stuff like that, you started having some medication to take, which is fantastic. And after that, therapy started kind of evolving. So I think he has been there because it's a very primal, primitive emotion for human beings. But I also think, as you were saying, that lifestyle has some impact on it. And we have some research that shows that people that live in towns like London suffer more from anxiety than people that live in the coast and have different kind of stresses in their life. So I guess the speed in which we live our lives, the worries, the unknown that you mentioned here is so important in terms of anxiety. All of those things contribute for, I guess, to increase the vulnerability of all of us. We are more vulnerable to actually experience that. We don't really have time to think about things much.
Right. Yeah. So just wanted to ask, some people's anxiety develops or becomes like a phobia. So as you also deal with phobias, how do you go about treating people that suffer from phobia? Yeah.
It's very interesting. So that takes me to, I guess, one question that you were asking me before in terms of how do we think about these things and the behavior. So people, in terms of anxiety and fear, we tend to overestimate what's going to happen. So we tend to think about it in a really tough way, let's say catastrophic, so it's the worst. So it's like, again, if we pick up on the spider or on the snake, it's going to kill me. That's what it's going to jump, it's going to hurt me, I'm going to die. So we tend to overestimate what's going to happen, okay? Now, the problem with all of that is that we also underestimate our ability to cope with it.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's the really tricky recipe there. So it's not just that it's going to be the worst thing in the whole world, it's also that I cannot deal with it. I don't have the tools, I don't know what to do. Okay? So because of that, then we engage in a lot of behaviors like avoidance. I don't want to see it. And I don't want to do anything about it. Or if I have to be in contact with it, I'm going to run away as fast as I can. I'm going to make this very short. So by avoiding it or escaping and all those things that we put into place, we never really see that the spider actually is more afraid of us than we are of the spider. So there's never really any disconfirmation. Do you see what I mean? So. And the reason why it is important to do this with a bit of help is that you're retraining your brain in a way. And we know these days that the center of fear in the brain, which is called amygdala, can actually learn to do things differently. So we're readjusting it. So that's very clear in phobias. So a phobia is a very intense response to an object or a situation. It's very circumscribed. It's just one thing. Right? Whereas other anxiety problems like social anxiety can be about a lot of things. So it tends to be very intense, very irrational. I've treated phobias of cats many times.
You probably might be seeing me then.
Dealt with people, for example, very scared of kittens. but not lions or tigers or all the cats.
That's her.
That's me. I'm not. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So very rational. How you do it? You can actually do it in about 3 hours.
Oh well.
There you go.
There you go.
I can give you, it's very interesting. I've done phobias of Santa Claus, boots, kind of wearing boots, think that you're going to suffocate with the Z, because, very interesting. Cotton, eggs, buttons.
Wow.
Height's very popular. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we could clarify so many questions we have in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Well, we are going to take a short break, but don't go away, as we will be back with more from Freer to Freedom and Fearless Style with Jessica Ann.
This program is brought to you by UCKG. This program is brought to you by UCKG.
Welcome back. For those of you who don't know who I am Jessica Ann, celebrity stylist and image consultant. Today I'm going to be looking at being brave with your own style. What I love about fashion, it's like playing dress up. It allows me to be creative and feel confident within myself to express who I am to the world and how I want to feel and who I want to become. So my style tips for today are: style tip number 1, style does not equal fashion. Style is being true to yourself and expressing your personality, experimenting and finding out who you are, and not being afraid to try different looks and styles. You don't need to follow fashion trends and dress the same as everyone else, or be a walking mannequin head to toe in the latest designer trends. Style tip number 2, being brave to stand out in the crowd. Find your own style and wear what makes you feel fearless, empowered and happy. Stylish women are not afraid to wear what they like, even if it is outrageous. Well, if you're going to a job interview, then maybe you want to be a little bit more appropriate. Style tip number 3 is all about great fit. None of us have the perfect bodies. However, realizing what suits your shape and being disciplined to only purchase those items of clothing that will look best on you, you'll be rewarded every time you look in the reflection. Style tip number 4, wearing clothes that suit your personality. Find out your wardrobe personality, which is a reflection of your inner style, who you are. There is only one rule in fashion, and it is wear what makes you feel and look good. Those were my style tips of the week. For now, be fearless and have fun.
Thank you, Jessica. That was very interesting. So from fearless fashion to living without fear.
Most of us tend to think of fear as a negative, as something to be avoided, but fear can have powerfully positive effects as well. The emotion is evolution's way of keeping us safe in the face of danger. When awakened, it can unleash abilities we never knew we had, unlocking reserves that are otherwise hidden.
Hysterical strength or superhuman strength is a display of extreme strength by humans beyond what is believed to be normal, usually occurring when people are in life and death situations.
The extra strength is believed to come from adrenaline.
Although there's no evidence.
Yeah.
Ladies, what do you think of hysterical strength? Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big believer in that. I see it even with family members. So I've got some young nieces and nephews. And, you know, I don't even think about it. Like, you know, my nephew was on a chair last night and he was just going like that. And obviously, you know, he's not thinking, oh, I'll fall off and break my neck or whatever. And literally, without thinking about it, it's like you just reach over. Oh! And, you know, if I was to think about it, oh my goodness, he's about to fall off the chair and he would have been on the floor. Yeah. And I can only imagine, like, you hear sometimes of parents, they'll see their children hit by a car or something and then they find the strength to lift up the car, and I can just imagine it, because when you're just you're so focused on, I need to help this person, or this is someone that I love, you're not thinking, oh, do I have the strength, do I not, or could I do it? And that's what we think when we logically process things. Oh, maybe I won't be able to lift that car, it'll be too heavy, I'm not strong enough. But you don't have time to do that.
You were talking about this. I have to share something funny that happened when I was, very little. One day I caught my brother. They were playing, he was playing with a friend, he's 4 years older than me, but I thought his friend was fighting him and like beating him up. So I was a little girl, but when I saw it, I grabbed something that was on the floor and I went to him and I beat the guy.
Wow. Hysterical
and,
right there.
And he was like, you should really value your sister because, she's small, but she fought for you.
But mighty.
And I couldn't see like he would come and beat me up, nothing. I would just came, with that instinct and said, let me save my brother, as if he couldn't save himself old, But that was, it's true, is what came to my mind.
That's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's that instinct. It's like what we're talking about, the survival. It's actually, if you see somebody, like sometimes I try to talk myself out of it, especially in the city that we live in, and things are getting more dangerous. But, naturally, if you see someone getting hurt or attacked, you kind of just want to get involved and say, leave that person alone, and there was a time that actually I put myself in similar danger because someone hit me on the back of a bus once, and there were 3 boys, and one of them hit the back of my head because I wasn't answering him, and I turned around, I ran down the stairs, so which one was you that did it? And I'm looking up at them, and then they were so frightened of my rage that they were like, no, it was him, I'm sorry. And afterwards I sat down, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, little pint-sized me, smaller than I am even now, trying to challenge these 3 men, but because I went with such a rage and I didn't even think about it, they were like, oh, sorry. So I do believe in it, definitely.
Yeah, it's true, and it can work, in a positive way and also in a negative way as everything else. Because some people, they let it, their hysterical stroke comes at a moment where it shouldn't really, and they cause danger to other people. So, it does have its negatives, but it does work out. I think I should do that when it comes to cats.
I know.
No, you, yes.
Stand back, cat. Exactly.
Move out the way.
But what you say is quite interesting, because how many have led to, like, say, a case of manslaughter, for instance? If you kill somebody, it's like you allow your emotions to run so high that you don't know the strength that you've got, and you could really harm someone, or you could even get to the point of actually killing somebody without realising, without thinking, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have done that. So it can get to a point where it does go a step too far. And I think that is what I've learned from this show, is that my emotions are good. They're supposed to be something to help me. They're supposed to benefit my life. They're supposed to protect me even. But when it gets to a point where it endangers me or endangers other people, and it starts to bring harm to myself, then I need to sort of say, actually, I need to put these emotions into check and let logic play a bit more of a part.
It's true, because actually, not too long ago, a family friend, we lost. She got killed. Her husband actually killed her, and now he's just gone crazy. He said, I don't know why I did it. I don't know what happened. So it was like maybe they were in a heat of an argument. She said something, and he just, a natural reaction, he just took a knife and killed her. Yeah, literally just last week. So I mean, we have to really know how to sort of control it, even though it's possible, but it can cause
as we
harm
said,
as well.
and as we learned as well from Dr. Santos, is something that comes from within, isn't it? It's something that, of course, needs to be treated. You cannot just accept and say, oh, this is who I am, and people need to accept me the way I am. But, at a certain point, you do need to as you said, to check and see if you need a treatment, if you need help, if you need some support for you to improve yourself, to get better.
I think a lot of people, they just become... many of us become comfortable with the fears and anxiety. We just accept it as part of life, and we don't, we even fear seeking help as though it's something that we just have to guard it. And, when Dr. Santos was speaking about, seeking help, and I think that's really, really important. It's something that, if one has fear, has anxiety, it's really important to reach out and seek for help, because I believe that's the beginning of how you will Yeah, oh, look at me, I'm talking and then I'm thinking about myself, really, isn't
exactly
it?
What I was
looking at, oh, yeah, I need to.
Yeah, I think like as our final thoughts, I would say that it doesn't matter the situation, you know, the person who are watching us maybe are going through, you know, you can have it under control. Sometimes you feel under attack, sometimes you feel we're going through something that is too much. We could learn here today that there is solution, you know, there is treatment. And I do personally believe that it's not only the medical treatment, you can also search to seek for a spiritual help as well, you know, to treat yourself, to believe in yourself, as she also said, not to depend on what people think, on the environment. And, you know, maybe those who are watching us are going through that and feeling hopeless as well. So I do believe that, you know, you can change the situation, you can help yourself, you don't need to accept to be there where you are.
Yeah, I think as well, something which we heard is that in inner cities like London, a lot of the time we don't make the time to have thought life and to think things through. And I think that's where it starts a lot of the time, is if you're not thinking, why do I do what I do? Why do I behave in this way? Why do I have this fear? If you're not thinking, then you will just go through the motions of life, and then that's when those thoughts come, well, this is how I've always been, that's how I've always behaved. And I think we need to take the time to think about why we do what we do, why we behave in the way we do, or even why this fear is so big and has such an impact in my life. And when we start to think it through, then that rationale can come in and say, actually, this is not right. Let me change this. Let me take the time to act differently. Or let me take the time to say, you know what, I am afraid of this. Okay, let me try to have the courage to take a step towards actually doing it. But when we don't make that time with ourselves to think about it, you never overcome it because you just go through the motions.
Life is full of stresses, yet many of us feel that our lives must be perfect. Bad days and setbacks will always happen, and it's important to remember that life is messy. Avoiding fears only makes them scarier. Whatever your fear, face it. It should start to fade. If you panic one day getting into a lift, for example, it's best to get into the lift the next day.
Well, you've heard our thoughts. So tell us now your thoughts on Twitter, Facebook, or by emailing comments at dkw.me or help@dkw.me. Join us next week for another exciting episode of DKW. Until then, it's goodbye.
This program is brought to you by UCKG.